Welcome back. You're listening to The Cinema Condition with your host, filmmaker, and creator of the Nerdcore podcast, Raul Alejandro Mendoza. And as always, we're here to discuss another film with another new guest. I want to go ahead and give a big thank you to you guys for showing up for last week's episode. And oh my God, you guys really did show up. I'm glad you guys enjoyed The Handmaiden with, The Handmaiden and Gaspar Noé's Love with Alex Almeida, but Handmaiden was with Leah Burns. I just didn't get the chance to thank you guys for Handmaiden because we recorded Love a little bit after I had done Handmaiden. So I want to give a huge thank you guys for Handmaiden. You guys loved that episode. Wow. I did not expect you guys to love that episode as much as you did, but I want to thank you all so much. It's thank you, Leah Burns, for coming back and talking with me. As well with the Gaspar Noé episode. That was a great one, and I really enjoyed having Alex back, and I'm glad that you guys loved it as well. So thank you all for the help on that, and thank you as always, because you guys are great people, and you make this a wonderful time to talk movies when you guys show that much love to us. So without further ado, I mean, today we're discussing a new film with a new guest. Yes, no returning guest today. We'll probably have it next week. But we have ourselves a new guest today, and Noah Key is here with me to talk about Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange. It's one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's also probably one of the closest people I've gotten to know at my time here in film school. So without further ado, let's go ahead and introduce ourselves to Mr. Noah Key. How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's really awesome to be on here.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. I've been bugging you to come on a show for a while. I told you to come on the live show a couple of times because it's just a show where we just hang out and be dummies. But, I had said that I have a couple of slots left that, I had to rearrange because of the pandemic and everything. Mm-hmm. So you're like, hey, bro, I want to do Clockwork Orange. I'm like, well, nobody's claimed Clockwork yet. So, I mean, I guess it's all yours.
Yeah, exactly. As soon as I saw it, it was just like perfect opportunity for it. Gotta take heed of it. Why not?
Yep. No, you want to tell them what you do specifically, other than being a huge movie fan?
Sure. Yeah, I'm a film major, just like Raul, and I usually like to make videos. Definitely right now, definitely have the time for it, working on all my film school projects right now. And also just studying movies, writing about them, reading about them. I just love it. My big passion right now is screenwriting, so I've just been writing nonstop. I have a script due tonight, and I have to write like 5 more pages or so for it. I'm sure I'll get that done though.
Dude, 5 more pages left? Jesus.
Yeah, it's a short film, and I'm going for like 25 pages, so it's just like I'm gonna like hopefully close it at around there or so. We'll see.
That's a tough one, man. Well, I mean, I think so. We've taken pretty much the same classes. One of the screenwriting class, when I took it, I did I believe 45 pages of a short. So that was a lot of pages, and I wanted it to be a feature, but I just couldn't crank out the full 60.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. This isn't actually for screenwriting classes. It's for a different class where to get extra credit for it. I was like, you have to do an extra project. I'm like, you know what? I'll write a screenplay. I'm good at this stuff. I'll write a screenplay. So it's not even for a film class. It's for a different class. But the class you're talking about, I took last year. And yeah, I was trying to go for a feature-length film, trying to hit like the 90, 100-page mark or something. Ended up getting like 66 pages, which I'm glad with, happy with. I would say it turned out well. Got an A in the class, so what are you going to do?
Pretty good idea. Yeah, man. So, yeah, I mean, you're a cinephile, you're a film student, we do all this wonderful stuff. And what's it called? Noah and I, we worked a lot during our time here. Yeah. Even though, what's it called? We were supposed to work more, but, that pandemic really kind of crapped all over that, right?
Yeah, we were supposed to.
Yeah,
exactly. And hopefully the fall.
Hopefully in the fall, yeah, because we're going to once again, we're going to take another class together. So
exactly,
it's going to be great.
Hopefully.
Yeah. No, I was a big fan of what's it called, the cinema, and he really, well, first of all, I mean, he's been studying this film for a bit because one of his assignments, and he wants to do this movie. And I said, okay, well, I mean, you know, I'll take up any opportunity to talk about Kubrick. Kubrick's one of my favorites of all time, and especially this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And so, I mean, thanks for picking this one. Well, you're gonna make this one easy because I have so many thoughts on this movie, man.
Yeah, I mean, same here. When we had to pick out the movie for our project, I saw Clockwork Orange wasn't taken yet for the project. And I was like, you know what? I haven't seen it yet. Don't know that much about it. Take some time and learn some a staple, I would say, in cinema history. So I recently watched it like a couple weeks ago and absolutely love it. And then when I saw that you were wanting to do this episode on it, I was just like, seize the opportunity. Let's do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the mid-season finale, my friends. We've reached episode 15. That's a huge landmark, man, because we've got 15 more until we end this season, and we're going to take a small break, and we're going to come back for season 2. And as always, you know, Noah's going to get to pick his movie for season 2, what he wants to do. And he's, you know, at the end, he gets to claim a film, and he gets to claim it from everybody else. Nobody else gets to choose his movie for season 2. So it's going to be a fun time. And yeah, I want to thank you all so much. I can't believe we made it to 15. 15 is a pretty good number right now for half of the whole season. We've got 15 more. And as always, I already talked about this on Twitter for a bit, but I did say after this one, you have 2 weeks without an episode. So we could, you know, I could stockpile at least 2 recordings so I could have them ready. And I can reassess what's left of the season, so I know what movies we need to do and what movies what I have to put on the back burner because people can't do them or something like that, you know. But we're gonna take 2 weeks off, and then we'll come back with a new episode. And with that, we're gonna keep going until we reach the end of episode 30. And by the way, I mean I already have the plan for 30. I know what the season finale is, and my friends, it's gonna be a fun one. I cannot wait to do that one. And it's going to be a great one. Originally, I had planned for 2001: A Space Odyssey to be number 30, to be the season finale. Sadly, things needed to be, you know, shift around. Now we have ourselves a different season finale. And my friends, I can't wait to talk about this movie with this individual because it's an amazing movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time as well. So I'll tease you guys enough with that, but you'll be seeing that until 14 more episodes. So
can't wait for that.
Oh, man, I don't know if you listen to the show, but this show is a lot of fun, and I love doing it. You know, it's not a review show like I tell everybody. It's not a review show. So you really talk about the themes of the film, and the film that I'm talking about for episode 30. Like it's gonna go down. It's gonna get deep as hell, bro. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you guys to the man who really does not need an introduction, but we have to introduce him for the people here. That is Mr. Stanley Kubrick. He was born on July 26, 1928, and he died on March 7th, 1999, the day before my 3rd birthday, I think. My 3rd birthday, yeah. You know,
wow, you're old.
Wow, I'm old. Yeah. No, I'm not that old. What's it called? Stanley, you know, he began his career as a photographer, really. You know, he was a photographer, and he, you know, went on to start his career in Hollywood, and he did his first film, Fear and Desire, and he did Killer's Kiss, and he did The Killing. But it wasn't until Paths of Glory that we really started to see, you know, the actual, you know, the really big research, the actual framing of what the Kubrickian style is. And you know, he would get into some really hardships with Spartacus in 60, but you know, he really does come full-fledged into it when he does Dr. Strangelove, or how I learned to stop worrying and learn to love the bomb. How I stopped worrying and learned to love the bomb. That movie, really sets up Kubrick to really start his trademark style of the Kubrick style, and really does cement him as one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. And he would after create the greatest science fiction film of all time, in my opinion, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Also one of the greatest movies of all time. 71, he makes A Clockwork Orange, which is the movie we're talking about today. In 75, he makes his British epic, Barry Lyndon. And that one also further cements him. And in 1980, he goes ahead and experiments with the horror genre by creating his psychological thriller, The Shining. In 1987, he also does, you know, his military drama, Full Metal Jacket. And then in 99, he creates his last film, his erotic drama Eyes Wide Shut, and I mean, this man is a man who has done so many genres, but he has always kept his eye on the realistic takes of cinema, on the dark humor, the dark comedy, and just the man. His career has been long. His career has been long in the years, but it's been very short in number of films. He only made 13
wow.
feature length films, and it's not a Hitchcock who made 50. But the man is one of the greatest of all time. He was supposed to do AI, and then he died, and that didn't happen. And also one of the most interesting things about Kubrick is also the films that he couldn't make, that he planned to make. A lot of the people always bring up his Napoleon film. Napoleon was supposed to be a huge film for him. He was ready to make it, and he just never got it. He also joins the list of directors who've never won the Best Director Oscar, even though you see this man and you see the work he's done, and he should have had a Best Director win, and he never got it. He has only won an Oscar for Best Special Visual Effects for 2001. That's the only one of his films that have gotten the Oscar. His movies have been nominated before. He's been nominated for Best Director. He just never won it. And
crazy, yeah.
It is crazy. The man, to me, he is the greatest American filmmaker of all time. He's easily one of the top 5. He's been easily tried to be replicated so many times, but nobody can do the Kubrick style like the man Stanley Kubrick. And
of course.
Noah, I want to know, why did you pick Clockwork Orange? I know you're going to tell me it's the movie I've been doing for my project.
Well, okay, to get more into the reason why I chose it as my project, it's just I've always been an admirer of Stanley Kubrick and his films up to this point. The Shining was probably my favorite film of his. Absolutely love it. And it's just I never got to a Clockwork Orange. I remember when I was a little kid, I saw a trailer for it, freaked the hell out of me, and warded me off for a little bit of it. And then now I'm thinking, okay, I need to give it a shot. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
And when I saw it, I just absolutely loved it. Just the themes of it, the cinematography behind it all, the editing behind it too, and of course the soundtrack, absolutely amazing. Yeah, definitely as a whole, it's just a beautiful, beautiful film.
Dude, yeah, one of my favorite things about this movie is just the way it starts. The famous Kubrick stare. The Kubrick stare that accompanies all his films, one of his trademarks. That stare is just amazing from Malcolm McDowell.
Talented actor, by the way, as well.
This movie, he is amazing in this movie.
The whole time, yeah, it's just it's so hard because I don't on paper, I would hate Alex and I don't sympathize with him at all, but just the charisma that Malcolm McDowell adds to the character is just, it's another level. It's incredible. I don't know. It's a very complex character, Alex DeLarge.
Yeah, Alex is a very complex character. This film is based on the book, A Clockwork Orange, and funny enough, this is one of the only film adaptations that Kubrick has done that largely stayed really stayed pretty faithful to the source material, which is odd because a lot of his work, especially if you know the history with The Shining, he did not stay faithful with The Shining at all. He kind of went where he wanted to go with it, which caused Stephen King to hate that movie. And this is one of his only movies where he stayed really, really somewhat faithful to the source material. And Clockwork Orange is a dystopian drama. We have our main protagonist, Alec DeLarge, who, him and his droogs, who, basically wreak havoc around the city. And, they commit violence, rape, and very, very dangerous things. One night when Alex bludgeons basically this woman at her home, Alex gets left by his droogs. And he goes to jail, and he gets he tries to get out by going into a very experimental, psychological, transformative procedure. which is trying to
conditioning,
which tries to rid him of all the bad things in his mind and his brain. And we find out that, that it has some very, very, very tough effects on him. And that is our story on Clockwork Orange. And you bring up the music, and right off the bat, I gotta give huge props here to Wendy Carlos, amazing music. The synth is amazing in this. It's amazing synthesizer. Kubrick isn't just using that in this movie. He also uses a collection of different classical music, which is really interesting because you're talking about a dystopian society set in the future, and there's still a big admiration for classical music in this dystopian society.
Right. Yeah. And the way that they just combine it, because one of my favorite pieces of music in the film is when he's in the record store before he goes to jail. He walks through. It's a long, beautiful shot of him walking through this colorful record store, and then he meets these two girls. But the music behind it, it's Beethoven's Ode to Joy, but it's played on a synthesizer, and it gives you the duality of his love for classical music. Along with the weird dystopian future that the whole story is set in.
Yeah, dude. And Kubrick, what he does with this wonderful, with the dystopian society is really create a very ugly and very futuristic look of Britain in dystopian and very future dystopian society. And it's really interesting because it's got this really weird look to it. But somehow it still feels kind of relevant in a sense.
Yeah, I could definitely, in the next 10 years, if all of this goes to hell or something, it doesn't seem that far off. It's not like we're out in space or something crazy. It's just it's a different aesthetic that could go, I don't know, in 10 years or so. You never know.
Yeah, man. I agree. Sorry, I had to mute myself because I just sneezed really loud. Yeah, but he does the way that he even frames these shots. It's very much every single shot is kind of like a fly on the wall ish, but they're all kind of very beautifully shot because of the symmetry of Kubrick's photography in this movie, and it just helps really elevate that atmosphere and really just the whole look of the movie just being very, very ugly and very and very very tough to look at because as beautifully framed as those shots when the violence is happening, you realize
you gotta look away at sometimes, but you can't. It's a weird feeling. I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's a weird feeling. When I first watched this movie, I was completely blown away. I was like, wow, I've never. It's just what was the firfirst feeling I ever had when I watched Taxi Driver. When I first watched Taxi Driver, I was blown away, and I said, I just don't want to watch this movie again, because it was really tough to watch it the first time, and then I rewatch it, and then I rewatched it for a third time this week. I'm like, dude, I love this movie. This movie's even though I don't sympathize with the character at all. The character, he's terrible. He's a terrible person. But there's a lot of interesting stuff to kind of analyze inside this character and really just the way that he works out, and also just. I think this movie really the dystopian society version, dystopian society characteristic around to it also brings up a really interesting conversation about the role of the government in where it plays with submitting these imprisoned people to these psychological conditioning, and where's the role of all that in there?
Right. Yeah. They pretty much just use Alex as a pawn throughout the entire film. And then later on, when he is out of prison, however, he's then not captured or kidnapped, but he meets the writer who he had previously beaten up and raped his wife. He resides with him for a bit, who if you analyze it a little bit more, and then you get a little bit more context if you know a little bit about the book, that the writer is on the liberal side, away from, who dislikes what the government is doing, and he detests what they did to Alex. However, he uses Alex's conditioning to pretty much use him as a pawn, and so it's a weird back and forth of what the government is doing, what people like the writer are doing, and Alex is pretty much in the middle, being tossed back and forth, being tortured. And by the end of the movie, the government changes their mind. They're like, you know what? We're going to treat you right. However, you have to do stuff for us. And be our spokesman. And so again, he's just being manipulated throughout the entire movie.
Yeah, he's constantly a pawn. You know, he's a pawn by those in the jail. You know, what's it called? By the way, the father, the priest in the jail.
Oh, yes.
So many, every single time, so many creepy vibes from him. It's just like, what's it called? I know about the situations when men are kept away from the attention of women, right? That's what he says, and it's no, dude. But yeah, he's used as a pawn. You know, the priests use him as a pawn to kind of put him on the right track as well. You know, with his religion. The government uses him as a pawn to test the psychological conditioning and to somehow rid him of whatever is what made him bad. The scientists are using them as a pawn as well. And then the liberal side that's represented by the writer, he's used as a pawn to just constantly push whatever they want to do. And it just seems that wherever, even though what Alex did was despicable and he did murder, it seems that Alex can never catch a break on being of use to somebody.
Exactly. Yeah. It's only like pretty much at the beginning of the film where he is like truly free, even though it's completely terrible, but he does have free will. But then as soon as he is captured by the police and becomes a part of the prison system, for the rest of the film, he's like a pawn by somebody else, whether it's on one side of the political spectrum or the other.
Yep. And it's interesting because even the rest of his droogs, you know, we don't know what happens to the rest of them except for just the other two, the two that we see. They end up just playing into the system itself, but they seem to take it more liberally now. You know, like, oh, we're protected by a badge, and now we can do what we were doing to people, but not really get in trouble for it because now we wear a badge. And now we're able to continue doing what they're doing to Alex and kind of use people for our own pleasure and use it for our own needs without having to actually get in trouble because, the government, they got into a bit of trouble because of what they put Alex through. But still at the end, they're able to like course correct and be like, okay, everything's gonna be fine. Just, be friends with us. The scientists are still going to be able to continue on with their research. Everybody else seems to be able to move accordingly to themselves, except for Alex, who has to kind of bend himself to the direction of the other people who seem to want to constantly use him.
Yeah, definitely. And so, and when you mentioned how his droogs became policemen, but however they still continue their violence, it just shows like how the two ideas merge of like, well, the droogs and the violent youths of this dystopian future are no different than what the government is doing. And so you kind of wonder, like, this whole conditioning, what they did to Alex, sure, they say they have good intentions, but it may not even be that different than what Alex and his droogs were doing beforehand.
Yeah, and the line kind of gets blurred, like, really who is the bad one here? Obviously we only see the crimes be committed by Alex and his droogs, but deeper beyond the surface level, the crimes that are being committed by the government as well are just as bad as what is happening to Alex, what Alex has done. Yep. And but one of them doesn't get put through a whole jail sentence, and the other one gets to continue on with what they're doing, and even still run for for their political positions.
Yeah, exactly. And then also when they do have the conditioning, the Ludovico technique is what they call it. They say like, oh, we're taking away all the bad stuff about you, and then inconsequently they take away his love for music, which probably is one of the most redeemable characteristics about Alex. And they take that only good part away from him. And so it kind of shows like that, sure, they may say they take away bad stuff, but they take away good stuff too.
Yeah. And I understand that might just like kind of like what's it called, in a sense, it's also because, what's it called, they're showing him films. And they've found a way to make these films seem like, what's it called, this, these terrible things that they're showing him, and they're kind of like, in a sense, also ruining movies for him, because they're like, wow, like everything I just watched is just completely, deters my my conditioning. But also the music part is the most interesting, because that's the one thing that seems, that's not the bad thing about Alex, that he just seems to love music and he really enjoys it, and that one thing that he does not get to enjoy anymore is still being ruined. And it seems that it's from his favorite artist. It's from Ludwig van Beethoven.
Yep.
I love how he just refers to him as Ludwig van.
They're on a first name basis. Yeah.
Oh, they've definitely met before, right?
Of course.
Yeah, and they just seem to take all these things away from from Alex. Consequently, they take the what Alex really did. Take his own parents away from him. Really being a shithead. But, he gets out of jail. His parents don't want him there.
Right.
They got a new son. And his friends don't want him anymore, because obviously he was a shithead to them too. And it seems that, everything that he kind of causes on his own to be taken away from him. But the one thing he kind of still wanted around with him was music. He can't enjoy that anymore, because it's what makes him go sick.
Yeah, exactly. Just, yeah, pretty much just reiterating, he had, like, before he went to prison, he had caused wrong to all these people. There was the drunk bum that they beat up. He dominated over his fellow droogs and pretty much was tyrannical over them. He was terrible to his parents, and pretty much once he gets out of the prison system, everything bites him in the ass again. But it really is just music that he was faithful to. And they just strip him away from that.
Yeah, and what's it called? Malcolm McDowell. What's it called? One of my favorite parts about this movie is just learning how many times they had to do that take with the spit. Kubrick made him. I think it was like around like 50-ish times they did that take of the spit.
Really?
Yeah,
wow.
Kubrick wanted it to, be perfect, aligned, where the spit landed, and Malcolm McDowell was just like what take is gonna do it, man? Like just stop making me go through this. And they did it constantly until we got that one perfect take where it just landed correctly on his face.
Yeah, I mean, Malcolm McDowell, he's a very enduring actor. I don't know if you've heard of or seen Caligula at all, but it's a pretty much a sex drama, and they have crazy different shots, and it's not a Kubrick thing at all, but it was around the same time, and Malcolm McDowell plays Caligula, who's like this sex crazed emperor of ancient Rome. And they have him do crazy things, just like what they had him do in Clockwork Orange. So definitely props to Malcolm McDowell for just going through so much shit in acting.
Yeah, and also like in the end, during the ending, when he's eating his food and he's talking to the politician, what's it called? It was apparently Kubrick was really bored with that scene. So Malcolm McDowell saw that, so he started doing that thing with his chewing, where he was just opening his mouth like doing that, and it seems that Kubrick really liked that. So it's interesting. Like Kubrick has always been the perfectionist with his films. I mean, if anybody who knows Kubrick knows that he shot the Who's Johnny scene like 100 and something times. Like that one was so many takes that he did, and Kubrick was always seeking for the perfect take on these movies. And I mean. That's why I think that nobody can do Kubrick these days, because the industry doesn't allow that type of work anymore,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The internet calls that out quick.
Go on.
I just said that the internet really calls that out really quickly now, where people are like, oh yeah, what do you mean? What do you mean you love this director? The director put these two actors through hell or something, and like made them do this take like some amount of times, like constantly. It's like, yeah, like this industry doesn't really allow for work like Kubrick anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, I was talking about how for my project, and I was studying the editing behind it all. I searched up Bill Butler, who is the editor for A Clockwork Orange, and I'm like, I've never heard of this guy. or something. I just know this is a Stanley Kubrick film, and sure enough, as I read it, he talks about how Bill Butler talks about how when he was editing it, they did it in Stanley Kubrick's garage,
Oh, wow.
and Kubrick was just like over his shoulder the entire time, and he was talking about like, I think he does this with every department. He must, and for 2 solid weeks, 14 hours a day, they just sat in his garage with their linear editing machine, just editing it all. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's great. I cannot imagine having Kubrick behind my back this the whole time trying to edit this film. But I mean, like everybody knows, Kubrick had a hand in everything. I mean, he was the definition of the auteur. So we're gonna go ahead and continue our conversation on the Clockwork Orange when we come back from break. But for now, listen to these wonderful commercial breaks made by some wonderful people. We'll catch you when we come back. Hey, I'm Raul Mendoza, and this is
Jabril Newton.
And we are the hosts of High Flyer Radio. And finally, pro wrestling has come back to the Nerdcore podcast feed in the form of a show hosted by Jabril and I. And we talk about everything and anything in the pro wrestling world on Mondays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Nothing's off limits. Whatever you guys want to talk about, it is from AEW to SmackDown to Raw to NXT. Nothing's off the table. We can talk about it.
We're going to talk all about it. And if you can get it a day early, you should go to the www.patreon.com/thenerdcore and pledge to the tiers on there so you can get this show and a lot of shows days early before anybody else gets to hear it. But enough talking about it. We'll go ahead and see you there at the Squared Circle. Oh, yeah. Don't tap out. Tune in.
Hey, it's Ashley from the Gamer Corps. You may remember me from such episodes as Big Screen Mess, Mo Money Mo Platforms, and Brad Can Read. Tune in weekly as I blab with my co-hosts Raul the Nerdy Chicano and Brad the Random Germ about the latest news in gaming and gush over what we're playing at the moment. Oh yeah, and we got the deals too. Keep up with the latest deals in gaming and what's happening as I mediate Brad and Raul fighting like a married couple. Will Death Stranding ever come out? Will Cyberpunk 2077 live up to the hype? Is a next-gen worth a $500 console price tag? And has there ever been a movie adaptation of a video game that's been done right? It's all on the Gamer Corps podcast, everywhere where podcasts are.
Hey everyone, my name is Raul, the Nerdy Chicano, and I am the host of The Impaired Files. The Impaired Files is an interview show brought to you every Thursday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. And I interview people such as filmmakers, content creators on YouTube, and podcasters like Colton Geschwander. And if you want to listen to that early, a whole week early, all you got to do is go to the Patreon and pledge to the $1 tier. And if you want to listen to it with the general public, then go to the Nerdcore podcast feed on anchor.fm/thenerdcore. And the case is closed, but it's not classified. See you guys there.
Hey guys, this is Brad, aka Young Yoda. Raul said I had to make an ad, so that's what I'm doing. It's supposed to be for Unstructured, but as you guys know, you can freaking catch me everywhere when it comes to this podcast feed. You can find me on the Nerd Cores, on Gamer Cores, on Nerdy Chicanos sometimes when I get lost. But for this particular one, I want you guys to go check out Unstructured. The Raul gave me free reign to do whatever I want to do. I don't know what he was thinking. So go hear me talk about LeBron James and Taco Tuesday, vaping, so many other freaking weird topics that chimichangas, that's a good one. Shout out to Deadpool. And yeah, I guess this is the end of the ad. So if you guys want to find me, you can find me all over the place on this podcast feed. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. I love you all. And nerd up.
Hello, guys and gals, and you're listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore. I am your host, Daniela Nunez, and along with my amazing co-host, Ashley Garcia, we discuss many things like social impact, pop culture, political realms, and any controversy surrounding the Nerdverse. Tune in and listen to us bi-weekly on the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we will love to chat and hear your thoughts on our wonderful show. And thank you again for listening to The Ladies of Nerdcore.
What's up, everybody? It is me, Raul, and I'm one of the hosts of the Nerdy Chicano Show. The Nerdy Chicano Show is a comedic show brought to you by Luis and myself, and it comes to you all every Sunday on the Nerdcore podcast feed. You can catch it a day early by becoming a Patreon and supporting us at the $1 tier. And I don't really know how to explain this show other than it's fun, We get to talk about whatever we want, and it helps you move on in the week. So if you want to catch the Nerdy Chicano show every Sunday at 8 a.m., all you got to do is go to anchor.fm/thenerdcore, and we'll see you there, baby. Hey everyone, I'm Raul.
And I'm Brad.
And we're the hosts of the Nerdcore podcast, the podcast that talks that nerd. Not on this ad, right?
Not
and
on this one.
We come to you every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. On the Mondays, we talk the news. That's the box office, the news of the week, and your trailer talk, if there is any. And on Tuesday, we have our theme review. And on Saturday, you have a Saturday morning review, usually movies that have come out in the week or anything we want to talk about. Right, Brett?
Exactly. Whatever we want to talk about, this is our show. If you don't like it, then you don't have to listen.
We're the flagship show of the Nerdcore podcast feed, and we can be found everywhere you can listen to podcasts like Stitcher, Apple Podcasts. So if you want to talk that nerd stuff with us every Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, make sure you tune in. And Brad?
Young Yoda out.
We're back. You're listening to the Cinema Condition with your host, Raul Mendoza, and we're here to finish talking about Clockwork Orange from the amazing director, Stanley Kubrick. And we are here with Noah Key, back again. We hope everybody had a wonderful time listening to those wonderful commercials. Those commercials are very important, guys. Very important. You make sure you guys go and listen to the other shows on the Nerdcore podcast feed at anchor.fm/nerdcore. And you go and leave a rating review on that podcast app, on the podcast app of your choice for that feed. And also make sure you leave one for this one. I saw 2 of you have left rating reviews for this feed, for the Cinema Condition feed, which I'm really happy for. And I would really, plead for a bit for you guys to go and do that. Take a little bit of your time during this episode. You're listening. Go to that Apple Podcast feed and drop a rating review. It really does help with the popularity of the show. It also, helps for the show to show up on people's feeds when people are trying to look for the show. It shows up easier and faster. So please go and do that and help us out that way. But we're going to go ahead and get back into our talk here about A Clockwork Orange, man. So, yeah, we wanted to talk a bit about the music. The synthesizer score from, from Carlos. Mm-hmm. She does an incredible job here. One of the reasons why this really does feel like a dystopian, futuristic film is because of that score. It reminds you a lot of the Blade Runner score.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I haven't even thought of that connection. Wow, yeah, but that definitely... good comparison to that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Blade Runner in a while, so I need to rewatch that.
Yeah, Vangelis is one of the best composers too. His that score is amazing. But yeah, dude, just that constant sound of the synth, just like and how it really does complement well with what's on the screen. It's one of the best things about this movie, man.
Yeah, and you were talking about the opening with the Kubrick stare.
Yeah.
Just like. And the way it, like, when it starts with the titles and then it just, like, you hear the big, like, bum, and it, like, just cuts to Alex's close-up, and you have the long zoom out. It's just the music underscores the entire thing, and just, I don't know, it brings, like, the whole feeling as a whole. It's kind of mystical, it's kind of, like, intriguing, but then also you can tell it's going to be a dark film.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah, and it really does amplify that feel and that atmosphere of it, and you really gotta give props to Kubrick for choosing for finding a composer like Carlos to do that, because she did an incredible job on it, and also just the inclusion of the opera, the classical music is really interesting too, because when the fighting is happening, that's when the classical music is playing, but during those really intimate moments, when those stares, when you're really seeing like kind of Alex be, really starting to understand the psyche of Alex, is when you have the synthesizer be played.
Right. But I like also the connection with the violence. You talk about how, like, you have the low synth when you're focusing in just on him. But then when you talk about, like, what he's super passionate for, which, first of all, is music, which he literally speaks out loud about, but then also his passion for violence. And you see, like, any time where there's violence, there is the classical music, whether it's Beethoven or the one piece, The Thieving Magpie, which is the piece that plays over when they fight that rival gang at the beginning of the film. It's just like the whole scene, it just plays out pretty much like a ballet. And so, and you see him, he's super happy, he's smiling the whole time, and he's just like super excited, and it's just like and having the two of them, the violence and the music, it just like wraps him up as a character as a whole, I would say.
Yeah, it really does synchronize with who the character of Alex is, and the music that's played during the car as well when they're going down the roadway. That music is really good too, and it's kind of like really concentrating on Alex. You know, the laughter of the droogs is in the back, but you have Alex, just that straight face of his, just like just really concentrated, and then you hear the music in the back, just well placed in that scene.
Definitely. I would say I would say like the pinnacle of just wrapping up who Alex is and with the music is when, like, after that whole night is done and he comes back and he puts in that cassette of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. That's just like when it goes to work. You see like the drastic cuts and angles of the Jesus statues, and then later on it cuts to like just these random images of violence and him as a vampire and many other just crazy things. When I was doing my project, that scene was like the one I was like, this is the example. This, if you had to look at the whole movie, this is who Alex is right off the bat.
Yeah, that is who he is. He's a music loving, imaginative, violent person who just who kind of lets his mind take over who he is. When even though at the end he knows that he kind of like he knows he's done wrong, he finds out a little bit too late because he's just allowed for his psyche to completely drain him out. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I can't believe I forgot. I can't believe I almost forgot to talk about this aspect of the film, and I wanted to bring this up because I think it's probably one of the funniest things in this movie. The choreography is amazing, especially during that fight scene with the rival gang. Dude, can we please talk about that picture perfect drop kick? The drop kick from that one droog. Oh my God, man! Not even the people in like WWE can do a picture perfect drop kick like that, bro.
It's just the perfect images of violence, I suppose.
Yeah,
it's just
I laugh so hard every single time I see that drop kick, bro. It's just like that's so picture perfect. Like I wonder how much it took. How many takes that was, because it was just like picture perfect how he just runs and he drops him on him.
Yeah, you just talk about Kubrick being a perfectionist and doing takes over and over. And like we're just talking about the spitting or something. Imagine like you have to do drop kicks and all stuff like that. And he's just like, oh no, you were 2 feet off. Do it again.
Yeah.
Something you never know.
Yeah, it's so interesting, man. I love that. I love that scene, just like how they fight and throwing the bottles on each other, putting paintings through their heads, hitting chairs with each other, drop kicks. Like the choreography is so well, and I'm telling you, it feels very operatic in a sense because of the music and the way that the camera is moving, especially when he's inside the houses with the people, the way that the camera is kind of like following, like if it's a dance in a way, it feels very synchronized, very operatic in a sense.
Exactly. You just see them, the blocking with the actors, the camera moves along with them, and the whole thing just like it wraps up with the soundtrack. And I'm sure like if you had like a typical like action fighting background music, like if you would have it in a Michael Bay movie, that kind of music, we wouldn't be finding it as operatic or as funny if it was just like typical action music. But just everything about it, the music, the movements of the camera, which is handheld for most of those action scenes.
Yeah. Which blows my mind. The blocking
of the characters. Yeah.
That blows my mind that most of those are handheld. You know how hard it is? You know how hard it is to hold a little DSLR with being handheld? It's so freaking hard to do handheld with a little DSLR. Imagine doing it with a freaking film camera with having huge reels in there. No, man. No.
Cannot imagine.
No. Talk about gaining muscle, dude. That's straight muscle right there. But yeah, man, it's though that's an aspect of the film that I can't believe I almost forgot to talk about. Forgot to not talk about. Because I just love the choreography and the way that the camera really moves with the action, and especially especially during when he goes into the house with the lady that he murders, the way that he teases her with the penis statue. Teases her
the
with
little
it.
sculpture that they have,
yeah, and the way that the camera kind of moves when he's doing that, and it's really well crafted and well framed.
Yeah, Definitely.
Yeah. So, I think what's it called? We're gonna get into our last part of the conversation here, but yeah, I gotta say that music is amazing. It's just, it's one of my favorite. Even though it's like what you said, it was like 4 tracks that are actually being used in there.
Yeah, it's just like you have Ode to Joy, you have the Ninth Symphony, you have the Thieving Magpie, and like a couple other like classic pieces, and you hear them like being reused, like the same music that they battle the rival gang with is the same music that they use when he breaks into the house of the older lady, and it's the same music you hear during the slow motion scene. It's the same piece of music. They just reuse it. However, it matches for each of them in their own respective ways, I would say.
Yeah, it really does. And one of the big themes about this film is really just the idea of morality, because the premise really is what's it called? Trying to take away the part of the brain, the part of a person that makes them, violent and the bad. Take out the bad to kind of leave them only with the good. And the lines are kind of blurred where the good and the bad is, because even those who are trying to do the change are bad people who are doing bad things to drastically change somebody. And by the end you find out that it was all worth for nothing, because he's been returned back to who he was, and he's going to continue being the shit person that he is, but now he has to kind of hide it to keep in good company with the mayor.
Exactly. You just have pretty much what you were talking about. They they try to take away the good from him. However, I mean, not the good, they take away the bad from him, all of the violence and the sexual nature of it all, which ends up taking some good parts away from him, his love for music. However, in the sense though, it's not taking it away. He still has these desires to do it. He wants to, in the demonstration, he wants to beat up that man who's beating him up and telling him to lick his shoe. He wants to beat him up. You hear the narration, or he wants to have sex with the woman approaches him. However, he just physically can't anymore. And the priest mentioned that it's not free will. This is free will. You're just controlling him.
Yeah.
And so you have that toss up of well, is he a good person now because he's like this? Well, probably not, because he still wants to do all this stuff. It's just he physically cannot because of it.
Yeah. There's just limitations now on how he can do it. That desire is there, and I think that also has a really big play into the way that our brains work. There are the things that we do that are they're the things that we do, right? But deep inside our brain, there's also those unconscious desires that we don't act upon. And Alex, he wants to do these. He has the desire. It's just now been stifled. He can't do it because he feels sick. It doesn't really do any work. You didn't really take anything away from him. You kind of just caged it. And you put a mark. You put a ribbon over it, and you said, okay, cool. You can't do this anymore. You're cured. But those initial desires are still there.
Exactly. And I don't know if you were going to mention this point or something, but it plays into what the title of the whole movie and the title of the book. He's he's a living, breathing thing. However, they try to use science and all these the Ludovico technique and all these ways to make him work a certain way. It's a Clockwork Orange. They're trying to put clockwork into this living, breathing orange. However, it doesn't work. It's a paradox within itself. That he's a living, breathing thing with free will. However, it's now being restricted, and so that's why he's pretty much being tortured.
It makes you really bring up the question, where does the idea of free will, where does it really come to a stop? Do we actually have free will? Is there always something in the back of us kind of controlling us? Is there what's it called? I really want to do this, but I know I shouldn't because it's inherently wrong. And in here, Alex, he knows he's doing wrong. He knows it's wrong. There is never an absolutely doubt in his mind that what he's doing is wrong. And part of the reason why he enjoys it so much is because it's wrong. But now the only thing they seem to be taking away is not the bad, it's his enjoyment of it.
Exactly. It's Yeah, pretty much you were.
Mm-hmm.
I can't add on more to that. It's just he still wants to do this, and the definition of free will. Well, is free will the actions that you do? Is it the words that you say? Is it the thoughts you have? Is it the different options that lay before you? What is free will up to that point? What's the extension of it? And pretty much after prison and after the Ludovico technique, the thing that's stripped away is the physical. However, and possibly what he says out loud, but his thoughts are still violent. It's just anything externally is not anymore. So it's like, so does that cross the free will line or not?
Yeah, and he's really completely changed. And what's it called? And it seems that and it's really interesting because I'm gonna put a nice little disclaimer in the beginning of this episode, because I know one of the things I'm going to bring up is kind of very triggering. He has control. He does not have any control over his desires. There's one desire where he does has his control, and it is how he reacts to the music. He wants to kill himself. He said, if it's the only one thing I can do, if I can't, what's it called? If I can't go through this life with being this way and having this reactions to the things that I want to do, then he says he's just going to kill himself. He's going to snuff it. And it's really interesting that that's the one thing he's going to do. Like it seems as his last resort, really.
Exactly. I mean, everything else has been stripped away from him. He didn't care so much about, the relationship he had with his parents, not even essentially the relationship he had with his fellow droogs. However, after prison, those options are all gone now, and his love for sex and violence is now gone too. He's just like, well, I've lost any connection I've had with people. The things I love to do are now gone, and especially his music, which he relied on, probably the only thing that he could call like a true friend, a good relationship he had that was healthy, is gone now. So he pretty much had nothing. And so in his mind, he thought this is the only way I can go. Yep.
And it really does form a really, really interesting question to talk about with this film about morality. And it's what Kubrick does in this is incredible, and especially just an incredible actor like Michael McDowell to really kind of bring this book to life. I really do want to read the book. I've never read the book, and I really want to get it now. And I said that when I first watched the film, and I know I got to get to it soon, but I really do want to buy this book.
Yeah, I have not read the book. In studying this film for the project, I read through the synopsis of the book as well, and it pretty much does stay like faithful to the text. However, there is one chapter at the end of the book that was not made available in the U.S. It was available everywhere else. So when Stanley Kubrick read the book, he didn't read the last chapter because it just wasn't available in the U.S. And so the movie misses that chapter at the end. I won't spoil it for you or for the viewers, but it does change like kind of what Alex wants to do and what he's like at the end. So I definitely need to read the book for what it is as well. I say this, I read the Wikipedia thing for a project. I need to read the book too.
Yeah, because by the end we kind of have to assume that Alex goes back to his life, but he just has to hide it and really kind of like put a different face on when he's with the mayor. Yeah. So it's really I want to read the book, and I think they probably sell the version with that last chapter in it, right?
Oh yeah. The last chapter is now made available in the U.S. It was back in the 60s and 70s when Kubrick first got the book. It just wasn't available because of certain themes, banned books in the United States. They don't like that stuff. Yeah.
You know how it works.
But it's made available now. Anybody can read it. The last chapter of the book.
Yeah. Well, man, I want to thank you so much for doing this, man. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun talking this film, but you're not done yet. So what's it called? This is how it's going to work. And I want to thank everybody, by the way, everybody who's listening past this point, thank you so much for finishing our conversation about A Clockwork Orange, really the themes of it, the music, everything about the aspects of the film, but especially the theme of morality in the film and the use of the psychological, the psychological aspects of it. But we've reached the hot seat,
Oh, no.
Noah, you've got one movie that you need to recommend to the people to watch now, and you got another movie that you need to claim for season 2 that nobody else can claim. but you.
Okay. All right. Okay, let me. Ooh. Okay, you really put me on the spot.
That's why it's called the hot seat, baby.
Okay. So does the movie that I recommend to people? Does it have to be also the one that I claim for next season?
Nope.
Or can it be? Okay. All right. Well, you know what? I'm gonna mix the both together. Hopefully, it's not taken. The movie Boyhood. Sure, it's not like a cinematic masterpiece in in the framing and the shots and editing, but just the story as a whole, I would say, is an incredible movie. It's definitely high on the list. I had studied it for this one class about a class I was taking about Houston and Austin and the cities as a whole, and I would definitely say this Boyhood by Richard Linklater is an incredible film that just shows. If you guys don't know, it's a movie that production spanned over the course of 14 years, following the same actors as they grow up, and it follows the life of this young boy, and just his going through puberty, going through his parents' divorce and remarriages, going through high school, and it ends with him going off to college. And it's an absolutely incredible film in terms of the writing and the performance of the actors, and just the whole environment of a film, I would say, is incredible. And I would definitely want to reserve that spot for next season.
Okay, so you are reserving. You are claiming Boyhood.
I'm claiming Boyhood, yes, sir.
Yeah, you probably got my little brother mad because that's one of his favorite movies of all time. I'm a fan of Linklater as well. I love that movie. That movie's really, really well made. I think what's it called? Just the execution of it is really interesting about using 12-year span. But dude, what's his name? I can't remember. I can never remember that guy's name. Ethan Hawke. Ethan Hawke's great in that movie. He's great in that movie. He
made the entire film for me because I grew up with divorced parents, and having that relationship with my own parents and watching something similar to that on film, it was just like everybody did a great job. All the actors were absolutely incredible and just relatable. Incredible film, I would say.
Now, man, what movie do you want to recommend the people watch that you can put out there for them?
Recommend for them to watch?
It can't be this one. It can't be this one. Okay.
I know it can't be this one. You know what? I'm gonna recommend another Kubrick. It's I would say Spartacus. I had to watch it recently for a different class that I'm taking about Greek stories and how they apply to modern day film. And one of the movies we watched was Spartacus. And when I first watched it, I didn't even realize that it was Stanley Kubrick. And then I read more about it. I'm like, oh wow, it is him. And like you mentioned before, it's before he really got into what his style was, before Dr. Strangelove and all that. I definitely recommend Spartacus for anybody. It just shows it's Stanley Kubrick before Kubrick, if you know what I mean. It's just, and it's a great film. I would say it's a staple film in cinema history.
Yeah, he had such a tough time filming that because he had a lot of problems with Douglas, but also that was the last movie he made that was not produced by him. He basically, if he were to make another movie, he wanted to have control over how the movie was going to be made. So he all the movies after they were produced by him as well.
Exactly, and it just shows, how I mentioned, just the style of Spartacus is not what I thought of Kubrick would be, because up to that point I have only seen films that Kubrick himself has produced and made, and it fits his style. Spartacus was not that, and so it was a surprise when I found that he directed it. But it's still an incredible film. Great actor performances. I definitely recommend Spartacus.
That movie really makes you wonder what could have been if he would have made his Napoleon movie.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I didn't
even consider that.
Yeah, and I think if people really do want to kind of really experiment and find out who Stanley Kubrick is, you have to watch Spartacus, because that's what makes you really, really understand. Like, if Spartacus would have been a better experience for Kubrick, we would have been talking about that a lot more than we do. But if you look at Spartacus and you realize, like, wow, this man, if he would have made his Napoleon movie, that would have been something. That we would have been talking about that more than any of these movies. But yeah, I want to thank you all so much for watching and listening. These are available on YouTube as well, but there's no actual video for it. But there's a lot of people who end up enjoying the episodes on YouTube, and I make these available for wherever you guys are able to watch them. So thank you all for watching or listening. Like I said, make sure you leave a rate review on this feed. It really, really does help us out. You can go to nerdcore.com and check out our writing. My writing there. I do a lot of writing on the site, and I do a bunch of reviews and stuff. So if you guys are ever interested in reading that stuff is at thenerdcore.com. Make sure you follow the Nerdcore on Instagram at the Nerdcore and the Nerdcore_ on Twitter for anybody who's on there. I am at the Nerdy Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter. And Noah, where can they find you?
They can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Kiki Bublé, like Michael Bublé. And that's where I post usually my art stuff and film stuff. So you can find me there.
Yep. So without further ado, it's been a really fun time here. And next week, honestly, guys, I have no idea who's coming back next week. The next episode, because we take a 2-week break. But I'm just really excited to continue on with this new season, with the first season, and finish up these last 15 Wow, I just hit my mic. With these last 15 episodes of the season. So I'm really excited to see what we got next. But without further ado, it's been a pleasure talking about this movie with Noah, and we'll go ahead and see you guys on the next episode.